Why do heroes give up their lives? Why do soldiers give up their lives for their countries? So many people who do give up their lives are seen as special, almost as if they're a cut above the average human being, because they sacrifice their life so that the rest of us could live somehow a better life. Well, that of course is a great topic that remains a gripping concern, whatever the celebration on Memorial Day or on something like 9/11, where some people that were very innocently going about their own lives died, and there was a dignity to those who gave their lives trying to save those who were left in the towers before they collapsed. I'm talking with John Cafourek, who's a pastor and also a psychologist, and he's going to be telling us about the principles that people die for and whether or not it's worth it. Hi, John.
Hi, Howard.
Do you have any Memorial Day memories yourself?
Well, yes, Howard. I have some starting at a rather tender age. I think I was 8 years old when I, as a youngster, began playing in a high school band in sort of a agricultural area, north central part of America. And we played for Memorial Day, played a number of songs as a band at the end of May each year for the celebration. And I recall those years, especially the very first one, when it seemed so unusual to me and such a long period of time as an 8-year-old. And we were gathered in the cemetery, and then they picked a veteran, elderly man, it sure seemed to me anyway, probably 70s or whatever, but as a youngster he seemed very elderly to me, and he went up to a microphone and began to read the names of the individuals in the community who had given their lives, sacrificed their lives in military service. And he started back, with World War I and came forward to World War II, and he just kept on, and it sounded to me like he was just droning on, and I got so very sad thinking about all these people whose names he was reading off. It sounded like they had really given the ultimate to give their lives, but they were dead. And to my 8-year-old mind, I thought, how sad this is.
Yeah,
why do we do this?
Yeah. Yeah.
I missed a number of concepts there, I'm sure.
Well, we can laugh about it, but the child looks at these incongruities, these situations where something is supposed to be good, like Memorial Day, and it's so sad.
Yeah.
Why do we celebrate such a sad thing, as a kid would say? Well, being willing to sacrifice your life is a deeply personal commitment. It is not something that anybody that does that, it does it lightly. Is it profoundly a group decision that a certain number of individuals get carried along and say, I'll do it, or does it always remain a fundamentally personal decision?
I think it is very personal anyway, to a great extent, where individuals can get very involved in a cause, and there are noble causes to alleviate suffering or to free people from oppression and bondage and give people a better life. So there are a lot of noble ideas. Well, Jesus Christ even commented on this type of ultimate sacrifice, being willing to lay down one's life. And he wasn't just talking about warfare here in this verse, but in John 15, verse 13, he said, greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for his friends. There is an aspect of our nature that can rise to a noble cause, or what we feel is a noble cause, and a willingness to commit ourselves so that if the worst case scenario, as we say, happens and we end up giving our lives for it, well, we believe in it that much.
Well, Jesus Christ is certainly the most famous example about sacrifice of one's life for others. Looking back at history, who would you say would be some of the top ones that people would recognize immediately that had certain principles that ultimately they gave their life for?
Well, here in America, and especially recent decades, we have observed a day each year in January in honor of Martin Luther King. And he was assassinated back, I think it was 1968. He was a man who used peaceful, nonviolent methods to show that there was injustice, that there were inequities and unfairness existing in America, and rather than urging individuals to gather up weapons and to march on Washington D.C. and try to overthrow the government, he came at it from a different point of view, and it must have been very difficult for those who were against him and his methods to figure out, well, how do we curb this? Because human nature throughout history has basically been used to using violence to combat violence.